Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video 159, Destroying Obstacles Within the Occult. Now, link in the description, I decided to include something extra. It's actually a mantra to Ganesha. Within Hinduism, of course, the elephant-headed god there. Generally a positive figure within Hindu tradition, seen as more benevolent, one of the more wise figures as well in many cases. Specifically, people chant mantras to Ganesha to try to break obstacles within their path. Now, the use of a mantra in a more secular sense is quite literally nothing more than, well, you're putting the focus of your mind in a calm, well thought out way, and thus your physical activities thereafter, they're more focused. They're more wise perhaps as well, and so it makes it easier to accomplish what you're trying to do. If something is standing in your way, chanting a mantra doesn't magically make them disappear, but it can be helpful. Focus in general, and meditation can certainly help to break obstacles in your life to help you succeed. Not because the meditation has some spooky dooky overtones, so much as it helps you to focus. It helps raise your mental awareness to a greater extent, as long as you can figure out how to meditate. I have difficulty with it because my mind fires off a mile a minute. It's just sort of the way that I am. So I prefer to use that more secular side of my mentality to think consciously about how to outmaneuver problems as they come. Other people, they're like, maybe they don't have that ability, but they can calm and focus themselves, and then they can think more clearly. So I suppose it's multiple strategies that you can use when you're dealing with something standing in your way. Another thing to keep in mind, what if it's an obstacle that's actually good for you? For instance, let's say it was your ambition in life, hey, I think I want to acquire some crack and smoke it. And you can't find any crack. There's like an obstacle keeping you from acquiring your crack cocaine. Well, that obstacle is probably not something you want to remove. You may think so. Sometimes we have things in life that we think that we want. Sometimes when we acquire them, they actually end up destroying us, or come close to it, or we find out it's not so great as we thought. Like, you get that old, stereotypical trope about, kids. Oh, I want this toy, and they wait, and they wait, and they beg, and they plead, and stomp their feet, and they get the toy. A week later, they don't even care about it anymore, because it's not as great as they thought. It was just a fad. Oh, everyone else is wearing this skirt. And then the fad ends, they're like, oh yeah, I have the pretty skirt. A week later, it's out of fashion because Disney says so, and now all of a sudden they want something else. Now they want the pogo stick, or some new video game, or this new computer accessory, the new smartphone that will be outdated in 6 months, something like that. Not every obstacle is truly negative. Sometimes they can be a good thing. Sometimes we want something, even if we know in the back of our heads it's not good to have it. It's something that we want. We feel disappointed when we don't get it, and then later on you find out, of course, hey, it wasn't actually that bad that I avoided this after all. That can happen. Oh, I want to go on a trip to Madagascar, and then you get stopped from actually getting on the plane, and then you find out later, like a week later, you find, oh, that plane crashed into the ocean. I could have been on it. Well, I guess it wasn't so bad that I didn't get my trip to Madagascar now, was it? I was hoping to go see the plague rats. I could go there and roast them over an open fire. That would have been fun. But at least I'm still alive. Now I can plan my plague rat hunting trip at some other time. That's sort of the way things happen. Sometimes reality can be a little bit mysterious. Now, you don't have to believe in things like synchronicity. You can boil it all down to coincidences. But I'm sure that for the average person, there have been times in their life something stands in their way and it actually turns out to be positive. Likewise, with anybody, there are always things that you want that you can't quite get, and you really do want them, and they would be positive for you. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't get the job. I didn't get this really good deal on a house. I got outbid. Something like that. And of course, if you approach these things with greater focus, it's always a good thing. Having greater focus is very positive when you're trying to get what you want. Another way to do this I found in my own practice, as an anecdote here. Simply writing and editing puts me in that relaxed state of mind to the point at which my subconscious almost takes over. When I write, I don't believe in automatic writing. That's shyster bullshit. But there is a state that I can get into when I'm writing, especially if I'm writing fiction or if I'm editing, where I'm not kind of consciously even paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm like deeply focused and passively absorbing the material in a very literal sense without physically reading it or something. It's kind of hard to explain. That relaxed state of mind helps me think of other things that I could be doing as well, and it helps me focus on the task at hand also. It's a double benefit. Breaking down obstacles can also be quite physical. You would think, of course, of destroying a person who's standing in your way in a very literal sense. Ask yourself, though, before you haul off and do such a thing, what are the consequences? Is this worth the risk? Number one. Number two, am I going to get like my ass beat as a result of trying to do this? Yeah, I don't think it's a great idea to, punch this 500-pound behemoth mastodon of a man, this bouncer who told me that my ID is actually fake even though I know it's not. Well, yeah, I could try to muscle my way into this club. Is it really worth it, or should I go to cross the street to the other one? Yeah, probably you should cross the street. You got to cut your losses at some points in life as well. Obstacle breaking is an interesting thing to think of. All of the times that something has stood in your way and it's actually been beneficial for you in some manner. Like another anecdote here, my overdose. My overdose was horrible, and it held me, for several years, it held me back at doing basically anything. I was totally depressed and anxiety-ridden. But, at the same time, it stopped me from continuing on the path that I was on in an academic fashion, where all I wanted to do was study, like, plant bio, get some rudimentary bachelor's degree, and then go off and get like a lab job. I would have been pulling in, maybe 35K a year or so. I would have had a degree. I would have had an okay job. But I wouldn't be where I am now. I would have been far behind where I am now. I'm far ahead of what I could have accomplished on the path that I was on. At the time, though, I thought that was what I wanted, and I was very upset because I was being held back from what I thought I wanted. Upon further reflection, I realized that's not really what I wanted in the beginning. But I wasn't under enough stress to investigate that side of myself that's like, what the hell are you doing? You think you can actually maintain a 9-to-5? It's a fucking lab somewhere for 35K a year? Are you really going to be happy with that, with the white picket fence existence? Or do you want to be a total maverick? Well, yeah, that's always what I wanted, but I had put that by the wayside because I didn't think that it was possible to do that. Now, of course, I realize it is, because I've been doing that for years. But at the time, I didn't. There was an obstacle in my way. It probably saved me from a miserable existence. I probably would have ended up, at some point, I would have gotten bored with what I was doing. Because I wouldn't be self-employed. I wouldn't have the leisure time that I have to work on all my different literary projects and things that make me happy. I never would have written a book. I never would have, certainly wouldn't be well known on YouTube. I wouldn't have the time to do anything. Maybe on a Friday night I'd make the odd video. You wouldn't be getting a lot of political analysis on this channel if I had continued down that path. My overdose, for all of the horror that it brought me, for all of the negativity it brought to my life, and for all of the depression and anger at times at the time, because it was preventing me from achieving academically what I wished to achieve, probably saved my career. My overdose was actually, in the long term, looking back, retrospectively, that obstacle was a really good thing in my life. Disclaimer, I'm not saying that you should dose yourself up to the eyeballs in spice or any drug and try to have some divine revelation. You don't need to do that. It wasn't necessary. It's just I needed to be shocked out of my own stupid existence because I was being dumb. It was dumb to keep going back to college, racking up more. I would have been even further in debt, and I'd be making half as much money to pay it off with, too. That would have been another problem. I would have been in debt forever. I got to the threshold of that anyway. Now, of course, I'm able to pay it off, student loan payments and everything I can handle. I probably wouldn't have been able to at the time, though. I was just told all along, I was lied to by people, essentially. Oh, go to college, you'll get a good job. Well, for a lot of people in this generation, that didn't happen. But I believed it at the time, and I stayed that course because I was already on it, and I was afraid to leave it. But then I ended up doing so because I sort of had to, and now everything's peachy keen. You wouldn't know who I was if I hadn't overdosed. You wouldn't have known. Most people that are familiar with my work, it wouldn't have been there. It never would have been made. It'd be like 10 videos on my channel probably. There might have been some more entheogen videos too. That's the other component. Because of my overdose, I stopped using all of those other substances. I could have died on one of those if I had been stupid about them. I was obviously stupid about spice. Well, therein lies the problem. I could have OD'd on another substance and not had anyone around at the time and drowned in the shower or something like that. Damn, then I would have been dead. Well, my problems would have been over, I suppose, but that's more of an obstacle to your physical development because your body is now rotting. It's a corpse. I wouldn't have even had money at the time to have provided my own funeral. So it would have been a sad existence. I would have been a workaday drone, or possibly an out-of-work workaday drone who's homeless, or dead. Yeah, that's where my path would have led me. I could never have been happy doing that sort of thing. I'm happy at doing what I'm doing now, though, and I'm real glad that I made those decisions. It forced me to reflect upon things. So when you meet an obstacle, do not immediately dismiss and attempt to destroy it. Think good, long, and hard about if it's got a lesson to teach you. Oh, you can prosper by this under the right conditions. And I mean really prosper. It's just fucking great. That's about all. Peace out.